Hi everyone, this is just a quick video to illustrate the differences between using Google and using Google Scholar for academic research in a university. While this is a video that's primarily aimed at law students, it should hopefully be of interest to anybody studying any degree at a university and doing any kind of academic research. So, and I've noticed this quite a lot in undergraduate essays, for example, where students are citing sources that maybe are not as reputable as peer-reviewed sources, as journal articles. And my thinking here is basically that students are just using ordinary Google rather than Google Scholar, or rather than, say, their university library or other databases. In the context of law, those legal databases would be things like Westlaw and LexisNexis. So I'm just going to give an example of the kind of why Google is not as good as Google Scholar for research. So I teach public law in the UK, and a common subject we're going to be talking about would be something like parliamentary sovereignty. So if I just search for parliamentary sovereignty here, incidentally, I put it in between double quotation marks. Just a handy tip here, if you don't know this already, is by putting it within quotation marks, I'm telling Google to look for this phrase, parliamentary and sovereignty together. If I didn't have these together, Google might return results that talk about that use the word parliamentary and also use the word sovereignty. So you might get a lot of false positives. So by putting it in inverted commas, it helps with your searches. So do a quick search of parliamentary sovereignty. Thankfully, there's no AI summary up here. Usually there is. I think it's pretty useless, and you can't rely upon those anyway. I've done other videos with regards to the problem of AI, so I don't need to go into that here. But just the first couple of sources that ordinary Google is throwing up here is we've got publications from the UK Parliament, and that's absolutely fine. Some of these might be produced, say, by the House of Commons Library, for example. But generally, this tends to be quite generic information and tends to be quite descriptive information. It is a reliable source. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but chances are you're not going to get the more in-depth critical analysis that you might get from an academic article. So it's going to be limited in that regard. And moving on then to Wikipedia, I should hopefully not have to explain why Wikipedia is not a reputable source. Just to put it in short terms, anyone can write a wiki. And even if it's one of the Wikipedia pages that has like a gold standard, or there are checks and limitations in terms of who can change it, nevertheless you're not necessarily demonstrating good research skills if you're citing that. Ultimately a Wikipedia article is getting, like, say, a gold standard check for its quality by virtue of the sources that it cites, and those sources are listed at the end of the wiki. So by all means, perhaps use it as a starting reference point, but go to actually those key sources that are included, that are making that Wikipedia wiki gold standard. So read the sources. Next up, we have a couple of blogs. Now, blogs aren't going to be double-blind peer-reviewed, so they're not going to be as reputable as a peer-reviewed article. The blogs, for example, they're a good source for getting to cutting-edge areas where the law is in development, or where an academic hasn't had time to get the full peer-reviewed paper out, because peer review takes a lot of time, the whole process around it. So these are good sources for that. But nevertheless, you're not necessarily demonstrating, key research skills if you're only citing those kind of sources. Lawteacher.net, absolutely not acceptable. Don't go near it. And Law Trove, this is more an educational resource, and it's by Oxford University Press. That's fine, but again, might be a bit descriptive. We're not going to get that kind of in-depth analysis. Again, another blog by a think tank. And when we're looking at think tanks, we need to think about, okay, again, it's not necessarily going to be peer reviewed, and we also need to think about what is the I suppose the ideological perspective of that think tank is an important thing to consider as well. Again, we have another blog here, absolutely fine. the UK Constitutional Law Association, it is a leading blog in the area of public law. Academics publish on it. And actually, the first Miller case in relation to Brexit and who can trigger Article 50 really actually did come from a blog written on this website. So it's a great resource. But the academics who write on this, generally speaking, will have peer-reviewed articles that might be better for you to cite instead. So by all means use it, but then maybe check out the academics' web profile to see what they've actually published, not a Wikipedia. So really, on this first page, we don't have any peer-reviewed articles. Move on to the second page, and finally, we have a peer-reviewed article. It's by myself. It's in the International Journal of Constitutional Law. It's on Parliamentary Sovereignty. It's fine. That's an accurate source, but personally speaking, I don't know if it's the a key source that you might be citing as a first year undergraduate if you're just trying to understand what parliamentary sovereignty is. And moving on, then we've Professor Mark Elliott's blog, which is an amazing resource, a great source. But again, it's perfectly fine to consult for educational purposes, but Professor Elliott has actually he's published loads of stuff in peer-reviewed articles and in books, so perhaps cite those sources rather than just his blog. Likewise, another think tank piece, again, think about who is sourcing them. Then we've got I think this is a book chapter. That's good. That's a reliable source. And then we've got here's again Professor Mark Elliott's. Here we go. Now we've got a peer-reviewed article. Okay, so this is a much more robust source perhaps than just citing a blog. But really, you can see it's taken us a while to get to the good sources, the peer-reviewed sources, and in the meantime, it's mixed up with a lot of other things. So that's an overview of just using Google. So we're going to do the exact same search again, parliamentary sovereignty inside double quotation marks, and do a search. And then straight away now we can see that the sources that are being returned are much more reliable and exactly the kind of academic sources that we want to see in essays, dissertations, etc. So the first one is a book by Goldsworthy, Parliamentary Sovereignty, Contemporary Debates. Excellent resource. Perfect source to cite. Next up, we've got T.R.S. Allen, the Oxford Journal of Legal Studies. These are leading names in leading journals. Great resource. Canadian Journal of Law and Jurisprudence. Again, amazing resource. Legal Studies in 2012. Perfect. Alison Young, Mike Gordon, Nick Barber. These are all leading voices that we want to see in an essay on something like parliamentary sovereignty, or which we'd expect to see. Then there we go. We've got Mark Elliott again in a chapter to the Changing Constitution book, and then we've got Keith Ewing here in the Modern Law Review. So Google Scholar basically searches academic journals and academic books, and it filters out all that noise, all those other non-reputable sources for the most part that we would see were we just using Google. Now, it's important to note, however, that Google Scholar can be skewed quite often towards American journals. Now, when you're searching for something like parliamentary sovereignty, chances are you're not going to get a lot of American journals in that regard. But if you're searching for something, say, like Judicial Review, for example, you might get much more American resources returned. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with that per se, but it just mightn't be of specific relevance to what you're looking for if you're undertaking a law degree in a UK or an Irish university, for example. So just be aware of that. And that's probably why Google Scholar is not a replacement for other databases like Westlaw and LexisNexis or your own library's website. Okay, those are your first port of call when you're doing any kind of legal research. Things like Google Scholar then come on afterwards. Okay, so I would strongly advise using Google Scholar over your normal Google. It's going to filter out those sources that are not as reputable and hopefully help you score higher in terms of the sources that you're reading and relying upon, the much more critical, in-depth and analytical, reputable, reliable sources that you're going to get from Google Scholar than from ordinary Google. So hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you.